I found an educational NGO that was right near me, and I started volunteering there, and it was just so eye-opening. Here I was with people who had so much less,
Yeah.
and yet they could find a reason to smile. And that is why my heart for advocacy was born, because as I was volunteering, the platform of pageantry was revealed to me, and I was like, oh, I'm doing this much on my own. What more could I do with a platform? If more people would want to get involved and maybe care as much as I do, how much more could we benefit these kids?
Number 1.
I get questioned a lot, like, was pageantry really in your mindset for you to go towards? And really, pageantry was not in my mind at all. It was actually born out of a time that I was living in Philippines for a few years, and I was just really, really down. I had so many opportunities that I thought were going to be breakthroughs for me that ended up being closed doors. And it was during that time that I developed my faith, but also during that time that I started volunteering. I found an educational NGO that was right near me, and I started volunteering there, and it was just so eye-opening. It resonates in my final answer at Miss Universe around the theme of gratitude, because that is really what hit me so hard, was that yes, I was facing hardships, but here I was with people who had so much less, and yet they could find a reason to smile. And that is why my heart for advocacy was born, because as I was volunteering, a close friend of mine joined Miss World Philippines. And the platform of pageantry was revealed to me, and I was like, oh, I'm doing this much on my own. What more could I do with a platform? If more people would want to get involved and maybe care as much as I do, how much more could we benefit these kids?
Number 2.
I already had this lesson before, but I feel like it was even more concrete during my reign, is to really try and be present. Because when so many things are happening, and I guess in the context of becoming a Miss Universe title holder, I didn't consider myself a public figure or in the public eye until the moment that Philippines was called. And so for me, it felt very overwhelming at times, if I'm completely honest. I wasn't used to people coming up to me and wanting photos. I wasn't used to people wanting to like pull me in this direction and that direction, or so much interaction on social media. It was very overwhelming, the bigness of it all. And so I had to constantly tell myself to be present, because time passes so fast. You really have to have a conscious thought to pull yourself into the moment and resonate with how am I feeling, because it's so fleeting. And sometimes it's the most beautiful, impactful things that are happening to you at that moment, but maybe you weren't paying attention. The second lesson, to regain your power in a way that you can only control for yourself. Because I guess I was thrown into a little bit of a loop, me being the leader of my own team here in the Philippines as a contestant, as a candidate. And then when I became Miss Universe, I became an employee.
Okay.
So instead of leading the vision of, I want to execute this campaign, I want to work with this charity, it was then, I'm just going to follow whatever I'm told. And at first that disheartened me a little bit, because there were so many projects I wish I could have created during my reign. I envisioned I would do so much on-ground community work. That was my heart and why I wanted to pursue that path. And I wasn't given a lot of opportunity to do that. And so what I did, I channeled all of that energy into planning what I wanted to do after reign. So it was kind of regaining my power again. And then third, this is not the peak. And that lesson would be, because a lot of people would say to me, like, what's next after Miss Universe? Like, it's so big, right? It's so international, it's so public. And sometimes it can feel, if I don't reach the same public achievement as something like that, was that all it was for me? But I've really understood that peaks come in so many different shapes and forms in your life, and it doesn't need to be validated in such a public way for it to be made important to you and significant to you. And so in the years since, I've had my own little peaks and my own little lows, but I just feel like my journey doesn't look like anyone else's. And that peak was a really big public peak, but there are other peaks too that are coming and will come. And I think that's the excitement of it all, that you don't know what's coming, but you're constantly working towards a direction where you know that they're coming.
Number 3.
I think the greatest thing of difficulty came from not understanding or speaking the language.
Okay.
Because growing up, my mom never spoke to me in Tagalog.
I see.
I think it was an effort for her to assimilate into working in Australia, and maybe out of respect to my dad so that we would all converse together. Being such a small family, we're only three, right? So I grew up without any understanding, and so moving here is really a blank slate.
Yeah.
And I obviously don't have any excuse for it now because I've been here for so long. But I think in knowing one's language, it allows you to connect. I mean, I connect and understand things now because I understand the language that before I just didn't understand, maybe the cultural context or the meaning of things, that if it's literally translated, there's a disconnect because I was like, I don't understand. But some things can't be literally translated.
Precisely.
But in terms of like the family values or the core values and like what make Filipino people who they are, I think that wasn't so foreign to me because my mom, I think, embodied that, and she carried it throughout my childhood. And so in traveling to the Philippines, also growing up, I sort of had that familiarity.
Yeah.
So in a way, it didn't feel completely foreign in discovering my Filipino heritage, but I think it was through the course of the pageant and then understanding the weight of a Philippine sash that I really dove deep into understanding like the history and the culture and the diversity of the different provinces and the different islands. And if I was maybe raised here in the Philippines, maybe I wouldn't have that curiosity or interest the way that I do.
Yeah.
Number 4.
I think in my 20s, I was just trying to figure out who I was. And I think in that journey, it's really easy to get swept up in the world. Well, my 20s was all about figuring out, what does that mean to me? What does beauty mean to me? What does success mean to me? Because if I allowed it to be defined by either the people in my industry or society, I think I would feel like I'm in a rat race. And I think coming into my 30s, I feel much more self-assured, like I know what I want. And I have a confidence, because when I stepped out to try and pursue my vision before, it felt scary because it had never been done before. And I ended up stepping on toes because I wasn't a yes girl. And that rubbed people the wrong way. And before, I used to be so caught up on like, should I have just, done the easy thing and done what they told me just to keep the peace? But at the end of the day, sticking true to your values and who you are sometimes will rub people the wrong way. A lot of times people will respect you for it. And now in my 30s, I feel so grounded in that. And it's exciting because I truly feel that now I'm stepping into a place where I'm creating a life that I know how I define success. I know how I define beauty. I know how I define happiness. And I think it's just a nice feeling.